The world of computing is quietly shifting beneath our fingertips. For decades, Windows has been the undisputed king of personal computing, the operating system that most of us learned to use before we even knew what an operating system was. From the early days of Windows 95 to the glossy interfaces of Windows 10 and 11, Microsoft's creation has been omnipresent. It's familiar, comfortable, and reliable, or at least it has been. But recently, an interesting trend has emerged. Windows users, people who have long sworn by the OS, are quietly switching to alternatives, and they aren't moving to other versions of Windows. They're switching to Linux, Mac OS, and sometimes even niche operating systems that were once considered hobbyist playgrounds. This is not a loud revolution with headlines screaming about the fall of Windows. It's a silent migration, a subtle shift in the landscape of personal computing. And the reasons behind it are revealing, shedding light on the changing expectations of users in 2026 and beyond. To understand why this shift is happening, we need to first appreciate what made Windows so dominant. Windows offered a combination of accessibility, software availability, and corporate adoption that no other OS could match for decades. The sheer volume of applications designed exclusively for Windows created a network effect. If you used Windows, you could run almost anything from Microsoft Office to AAA games, from niche productivity tools to industry-standard design software. The familiarity of its interface, the ease of installing applications, and the decades of accumulated knowledge in forums, tutorials, and manuals made it the default choice for millions. Windows didn't just win by being good, it won by being ubiquitous. Yet ubiquity comes with trade-offs. The very elements that made Windows a reliable choice are now becoming points of friction for modern users. For one, performance inconsistencies have become more noticeable. As Windows evolves, its system requirements expand, its background processes multiply, and users find themselves managing bloat that they never asked for. From unnecessary startup programs to updates that restart the computer at inconvenient times, Windows has begun to feel less like a seamless tool and more like a high-maintenance companion. Many users, especially those who prefer a streamlined, efficient experience, are beginning to notice that alternatives can offer a smoother ride without sacrificing functionality. Take Linux, for instance. Once seen as the playground of enthusiasts, programmers, and hardcore tech users, Linux has matured dramatically over the past decade. Distributions like Ubuntu, Fedora, and Mint have made installation and daily use far more user-friendly than ever before. The graphical interfaces are polished, software management is streamlined through package managers and app stores, and modern Linux distributions support a staggering array of hardware out of the box. For users tired of Windows quirks, Linux offers a lightweight, fast, and highly customizable alternative. It's a breath of fresh air for anyone who wants control over their system, without feeling trapped in the constraints of proprietary software. Beyond performance and customization, security is a major motivator for users making the switch. Windows has long been a target for malware and cyberattacks due to its massive market share. Even with robust antivirus solutions and frequent updates, users often face vulnerabilities that can compromise data and privacy. Linux, by contrast, is built with security and permissions in mind. Its open-source nature means that vulnerabilities are quickly identified and patched by a global community. While no system is impervious, Linux's architecture and active development community make it an attractive option for those concerned about digital safety. In an age where privacy scandals, ransomware attacks, and spyware are increasingly common, this factor alone is enough to drive users to consider alternatives. Another subtle yet powerful driver of this migration is the growing dissatisfaction with Windows Update model. For many users, Windows updates are disruptive, opaque, and sometimes counterproductive. Features are added or removed without clear rationale, updates are pushed automatically, and compatibility issues can arise unexpectedly. Users who simply want their computers to work reliably find themselves spending hours troubleshooting update-related problems, a frustration that Linux largely avoids. With Linux, updates are generally modular, predictable, and user-controlled. Users can choose when to update, what to update, and even selectively ignore certain updates if needed. The sense of control is liberating for anyone who has grown weary of being at the mercy of forced system changes. Then there's the matter of software evolution. Microsoft has invested heavily in cloud services and subscription models like Microsoft 365, pushing users toward recurring payments and online integration. While these services offer convenience, they also tie users into a closed ecosystem. Many users are realizing that alternatives, especially open-source solutions, can accomplish the same tasks without the constant financial or privacy trade-offs. LibreOffice, GIMP, Blender, and countless other open-source applications provide comparable functionality for office work, graphic design, video editing, and more. For users tired of the subscription model and digital surveillance, these tools offer freedom and flexibility. Gaming, once a domain where Windows reigns supreme, is also evolving in ways that challenge its monopoly. The rise of Steam Deck cloud gaming platforms, and Proton, a compatibility layer that allows Windows games to run on Linux, has dramatically expanded gaming possibilities beyond Windows. Enthusiastic gamers can now enjoy AA titles on Linux with little to no compromise, breaking a long-held argument against switching. This has further eroded the perception that Windows is the only viable option for gaming, opening doors for users who might have once stayed solely for game compatibility. It's also important to consider the cultural and generational factors at play. Younger users, digital natives who have grown up with mobile devices and cloud services, are less bound to the idea that Windows is the default. They approach computing pragmatically. Which system offers the features they want, the speed they need, and the environment they enjoy? For these users, aesthetics, performance, and ethos matter as much as software availability. Linux, with its vibrant communities, transparency, and emphasis on efficiency, appeals strongly to these sensibilities. The same goes for macOS users, who are drawn to design cohesion, system reliability, and the seamless integration of hardware and software. The traditional inertia that once kept users on Windows is weakening. Another fascinating aspect of this shift is the social dimension. As more tech influencers, content creators, and developers share their experiences with alternative operating systems, their audiences take notice. Tutorials, live streams, and testimonials about migrating from Windows to Linux or macOS make the transition feel achievable rather than intimidating. The narrative is changing from Windows is standard, everything else is niche, to choose the system that works best for you. Social proof, combined with visible productivity and creative success stories, encouraged more users to explore alternatives without fear of losing compatibility or community support. Accessibility and hardware considerations are also important. Modern hardware, from ultrabooks to high-performance desktops, is increasingly compatible with multiple operating systems. Linux drivers are far more comprehensive than they used to be, making it feasible to switch without sacrificing functionality. Meanwhile, Windows often struggles with legacy compatibility issues or hardware bloat, particularly on older machines. Users who want to breathe new life into aging devices find that Linux can deliver smoother performance, faster boot times, and lower system requirements, effectively extending the lifespan of their computers. This is an appealing prospect in a world increasingly conscious of sustainability and resource efficiency. We also can't ignore the philosophical motivations behind the shift. Open-source advocates argue that users should have ownership and control over their digital lives. With Linux, the source code is available, communities collaborate transparently, and the software is free to use, modify, and distribute. For users frustrated by corporate control, digital surveillance, or restrictive software licensing, this ethos resonates deeply. The move away from Windows isn't just about performance or features. It's about aligning with a philosophy that values freedom, transparency, and empowerment. Yet, this migration isn't without its challenges. Windows users accustomed to specific applications or workflows may face a learning curve when switching. While many popular applications have Linux alternatives or compatibility solutions, some specialized software remains Windows exclusive. However, the gap is narrowing and the community-driven support ecosystem is robust. Forums, guides, and tutorials make transitioning far more approachable than it was a decade ago. Increasingly, the benefits control, performance, security, and ideology outweigh the friction, especially for users willing to invest a little time in learning. It's worth noting that Microsoft is aware of these trends. Windows 11 and upcoming iterations are designed to modernize the interface, enhance security, and integrate cloud services more seamlessly. The company is experimenting with features like Linux subsystem support, Android app integration, and improved performance optimizations. These are clear attempts to retain users and address the criticisms that are driving the migration. Yet for many, these measures feel like incremental patches on an aging foundation. The underlying issues, control, privacy, performance, and freedom, remain unresolved for users who have tasted the alternative. The quiet nature of this migration is itself telling. It's not a mass exodus with media fanfare. It's subtle, incremental, and often invisible. A developer installs Linux on a secondary machine. A student experiments with dual-boot setups. A creative professional begins using Linux-exclusive tools alongside Windows. Over time, reliance on Windows diminishes, and the switch becomes permanent. These micro-decisions, multiplied across millions of users, are reshaping the ecosystem from the inside out. The shift may seem small on an individual level, but collectively, it signals a significant change in user expectations and priorities. Ultimately, the reasons Windows users are quietly switching are multifaceted. They crave efficiency, stability, and performance without unnecessary bloat. They seek security, privacy, and control over their digital environments. They are motivated by philosophical alignment with open-source principles or simply a desire to escape corporate ecosystems that increasingly dictate how software is used. They are influenced by generational attitudes that prioritize choice and adaptability over tradition. And they are empowered by the tools, resources, and communities that make switching feasible and rewarding. In this evolving landscape, Windows is no longer the unchallenged standard. Alternatives are viable, polished, and appealing in ways that were unimaginable just a decade ago. Users are discovering that the system they grew up with doesn't have to define them forever. They are exploring, experimenting, and ultimately deciding that their computing experience can be better, faster, and freer elsewhere. And while Microsoft continues to innovate and respond, the quiet migration signals a fundamental shift in the relationship between users and their operating systems, a shift that will only grow more pronounced in the years to come. For anyone still entrenched in the Windows ecosystem, the story is a wake-up call. Comfort and familiarity are no longer sufficient to retain loyalty. Users are empowered to demand more, to explore alternatives, and to choose systems that align with their values, needs, and expectations. The migration may be quiet, but its implications are loud and far-reaching. Those who ignore it may find themselves left behind, clinging to a system that is increasingly seen as an option rather than the default. In conclusion, Windows users are quietly switching because they have options, and those options are better than ever. Performance, security, control, privacy, community, and ideology all converge to create a compelling case for change. This shift is not a temporary trend. It's a reflection of evolving user priorities and a broader movement toward computing that is user-centric, flexible, and empowering. The quiet migration may not make headlines, but it is one of the most significant stories in modern computing. As more users embrace alternatives, the landscape of personal computing is being reshaped in subtle but irreversible ways. The era of unquestioned Windows dominance is fading, replaced by a future where users have the power and the freedom to choose.